Does it feel like Beloit time yet? Does it feel like time to start? Well, it's a special evening. Welcome all of you. I'm Chris Fink, professor in the English department. Just a minute, thanks for my phone. Just kidding. Wouldn't it be annoying if I really did? Turn off your phones. Before we introduce to tonight's speaker, I'd like to give you a little context for why we're all here together tonight. Tonight's event, which is the Mackey keynote reading, is an annual highlight for the college, and especially for the English department. Tonight we celebrate the reason we have English departments. That is because we have storytellers. Like many great things at the college, tonight's event is made possible by a Beloit College student. Two of them, actually. It turns out that there's also a great story behind these two benefactors of this residency. And it's a love story, which is the best kind of story we all know. Lois and Willard Mackey met as Beloit College freshmen in 1941. In fact, they had their first date in downtown Beloit on December 7th, 1941. Is there a student in the room for a prize? Who can tell us what happened on December 7th, 1941? Back row.
Pearl Harbor?
Pearl Harbor. Yes, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Would you like a brand new Beloit fiction journal or a copy of Rebecca Mackay's The Borrower?
Yes, please. Can I get the Rebecca Mackay?
Yes. What's your name, you smart young man?
Webb Arnold.
Webb. Everybody, there were 10 hands up, but Webb got it first. How's that for a first date? So Lois and Willard Mackey coming back from downtown Beloit, college freshmen in 1941, and December 7th, and as they were coming home, they find out that there's been an attack in Pearl Harbor. Within weeks, Bill enlisted, and some months later was shipped overseas as a member of the United States Marines, where he served in the Pacific Theater. Lois continued her study as an English major at Beloit and graduated in 1945. Bill returned after the war to edit the Beloit College Roundtable and complete his Bachelor of Arts in German in 1947. They were married in 1947 and had 3 kids. Bill Mackey enjoyed a brilliant career in advertising in New York, and Lois loved literature and was an enthusiastic reader. Her memory and Bill's lifelong dedication to his alma mater and to the value of creativity led to the founding of the Distinguished Writers Program in 1988, which is why we're here. And in 1988, we had our very first Mackey Chair in creative writing at Beloit College. Is there a student out there who can tell us who the first Mackey Chair was? For a free gift of a book. First Mackey Chair, 1988. Yes. Raymond Carver. Yes, it was Raymond Carver. Yes, that guy. Sadly, Raymond Carver couldn't come because he was terminally ill, but his wife, Tess Gallagher, the poet, was actually the very first Mackey Chair in creative writing at Beloit College in 1990. The 100-Year House, for music for wartime. Smart students, you get that signed afterwards. After the reading, the author will sign books. So that was our very first Mackey Chair. So since then, because of the Mackey family's tremendous gift, our college has been host to 28 literary luminaries since 1988. While most colleges host visiting writers, the Mackey program is absolutely unique. Tonight's reading by Rebecca Makkai is the icing on the cake, but the cake itself is the 6-week class taught by Professor Makkai. The 15 lucky students in that class, like the hundreds of Mackey students before them, have had their educations indelibly enriched by Professor Makkai and 2 Beloit students with a vision. These students now are part of that terrific continuing story. So, here to introduce Rebecca Makkai is our own Christy Clancy, a hell of a writer herself, and a great teacher and a friend.
A little shorter. Hey, Rebecca. Well, I'm really pleased to see everyone seated here. And when I say I'm pleased to see you seated here, I mean I literally am pleased to see you seated here. Because the last time Rebecca came to campus, I was in charge of her reading, and I thought I was pretty good at organizing readings. And then we walked into the Wright Art Museum, and there wasn't a chair to be found. So I didn't know I had to order chairs. But Rebecca was gracious as always and suggested that we sit on the floor. And we did, and as soon as she started reading a story about a dead circus elephant from her collection, Music for Wartime, the room started to feel like a literary salon. And soon we forgot about the cold, hard floor we sat on, and I started to work off my embarrassment. We were so transported by her story that we even forgot that it was the eve of the last presidential election. I'm pretty sure Rebecca wrote a scene in her amazing new novel, The Great Believer, shortly after that night. Her protagonist, Yale, a gay man living in Chicago in the 1980s, has watched his friends get sick and die during the epidemic, and has just learned that the Space Shuttle Challenger had blown up shortly after liftoff. Many of you don't remember the Challenger, but it was an event that shook the country, and it shook Yale, who thinks this was so horribly sad. Everything was so horribly sad. He talked to his friend Roman and said, "You know what's worse than something bad happening is when something was supposed to be really good, when everyone expected it to be wonderful, and then it's bad. Why is that so much worse?" Much of Mackay's writing dwells on what's hard, political, and controversial. She wrote an unflinching essay in The New Yorker about being accused of plagiarism after she wrote a victim impact statement after her assault. Her first novel, The Believers, is about a woman who kidnaps a boy to save him from gay conversion therapy. The 100-Year House, a story that's told backwards in time, is about, among other things, a failing marriage and depression. And of course, Music for Wartime features stories about wartime, among other things. This might give you the impression that her work is dark, and it can be, but there's music, friendship, art. Her characters are like us. They floss their teeth, and they get the runs, and they scream when they see a mouse. They crack jokes, and we laugh with them. They flirt, they take care of cats, they seek love and forgiveness and visit each other in the hospital. They sleep with Johann Sebastian Bach and the men they meet on airplanes. The novelist Jane Smiley says that when we like writing, what we really like is the way a writer thinks. Makkai has become an incredibly successful career because of the way she thinks, because of her roving and inquisitive mind, her humor, and her insight. She's a recipient of the NEA Literary Fellowship for Fiction. Her short stories have appeared on NPR and This American Life, and in esteemed journals like Tin House, The New England Review, and Harper's, and Pleiades, which we were both in, which is fun. It's like the icing on the cake. And has been anthologized in Plowshares and Best American Non-Acquired Reading. Unbelievably, her stories were also anthologized for the Best American Short Story Collection, not once, twice, 3 times, but 4 years in a row. Is anyone here obsessed with the Best American Short Story Collection? You get it every year, you ask your parents for it for Christmas, you build a collection, they have a special place on your bookshelf. For a geek like me, I'm completely in awe of that accomplishment. I just finished Rebecca's novel, The Great Believers, earlier today, and I'm so stirred and shaken by what I read that I can honestly hardly speak about it. The book doesn't come out until June, but my bookseller friend snuck me a pre-release copy, and she said she had a feeling it was going to be a big book. Really big book. Like Pulitzer Prize big. And a week or so later, she wrote to me, and she said, "Did you finish Great Believers? Throw it across the room, break all your best china, put a fist through your drywall?" And I did all those things, and before I left, I burned my house down. And that's exactly what you want great literature to do. It moves us to anger and tears and fire. We want what the characters want. We suffer their setbacks, we cry at their losses, and acknowledge their insight. Great literature forces us to dwell in painful personal moments, and also great political events, while at the same time offering us an escape and an opportunity for reflection. The epigraph of Great Believers is from Rebecca Hazelton Stafford, who maybe some of you remember. She was a visiting professor the first year I was here. And I thought it perfectly summed up the pain and pleasure, both in the Great Believers, but also in Rebecca's approach to all of her work. And it's really lovely. She says, "The world is a wonder, but the portions are small." As a Mackey chair, I'm so thrilled that she stands shoulder to shoulder with previous recipients, like some of the people that Chris was talking about, literary luminaries Ursula K. Le Guin, National Poet Laureate Billy Collins, Kevin Young, who's now the poetry editor of The New Yorker, George Dawes Green, who runs The Moth and started that, Amy Hempel, and Lee Young Lee, the poet. I'm so pleased that Rebecca is sharing her enormous talent with us, and that she's here tonight. Although I'm a little nervous because after the last presidential election, it's Friday the 13th. So who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, but really, who cares? For now, let's allow ourselves to be transported. You might wish your seats had seatbelts. Thank you, Rebecca.
I have a lot of things to give. I'm going to try to make it brief, but I've been having the most wonderful time here. I have the most amazing students. Everything's been amazing here. And so specific thanks to Chris Fink and to Christy, who originally invited me up here. I thank the Biermans for a wonderful dinner tonight and all the people who were there just chatting and really making my night before all this, and everyone I've met here who's been lovely to me, so thank you all. I'll try not to make any national catastrophes happen tomorrow as I read from the best friend. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read two different things. I'm going to read a full short story that's not really a full short story, I'll get to that in a second, from my collection. And then I'm going to read you part of the first chapter from my new novel, The Great Believers, so you can get a sense of what that's about. The short story is going to be longer, and I'll read you a little bit more briefly from the novel. I figured that it's a Friday night, and you guys have had a really long week, so I'm going to read you a story about reality TV. So here's the deal, though. When the version that you might read in public is often quite different from the written version. And if you actually look at, I don't know if you guys can see, you have good eyes. I have like half the story crossed out. So I'm going to be skipping around a lot, and that means if you don't like it, it's just because of the stuff I left out. And if you do like it, then you could buy the story collection and find the whole story. Before I start this, I'm going to say that this is a story about reality TV. I wrote it quite a while ago. The story collection came out in 2015, but the story is quite a bit older than that. And I really tried as best as I could to research what it was like working on a reality TV show, and I couldn't find much of anything because everyone who works in reality TV signs these non-disclosure agreements for millions of dollars that they'd be on the hook for. So I really had to guess about a lot of it, but after it appeared, I got contacted from a lot of people who either thought it was real, which was funny, or who were like, I work in reality TV and that's pretty much what it's like, which was really alarming because I thought I was exaggerating. Anyway, so I'm going to read you, it's going to start at the beginning and end at the end, but there's going to be a lot of stuff we skip along the way if people are, want to know. So this is called The November Story. Marcus is a gifted crier. We just say, tell us how your grandfather would feel, and he gushes like Miss America. My grandfather would be so proud of me, he says, and blows a kiss to the sky. Or we ask if he feels that his whole life has been a struggle. He says, I just feel that my whole life has been just this huge struggle. And then he starts snorting and choking and holds up a finger. The producers love the criers, and they love the cocky bastards, and they love the snarky gay men. The others we try to get drunk. If there are any straight guys, we flirt. Inez flips her hair. I undo one more button on my blouse. If necessary, we feed them lines. I don't try to explain anymore to Beth what I do, why my voice is never on the show. Really, I think she's pretending to be confused. I think she likes saying, okay, but why don't they just have the contestants talk to the camera on their own? Aren't we smart enough? She lies on the couch with her heavy blanket around her, even though it's the middle of June and pretty warm. And if I try to tell her about Sabrina screaming at the judges or Astrid getting drunk, she says, don't tell, you'll ruin the show for me, even though she never watches what I work on. So I stop talking, because what else could I possibly talk about? Hour after hour, Inez and I sit in folding chairs. The contestants sit on what looks like a throne, something oak and leather the producers found in the library. Inez is great at maintaining a lethally bored expression, so whoever we're interviewing feels compelled to say more and more interesting things, more outrageous, more emotional. We say, this isn't who we picked. We picked someone vivacious, opinionated, funny. Please remember that the producers have the final decision. We say, we're not getting a character arc. This is going to be boring TV. We say, remember, this is a job. We're paying you, and your job is to answer all the questions. Then we say, what do you hate about Leslie? I don't hate her, they say. Yes, but you need to answer the question. Well, she's pretty sure of herself. I mean, she's good. We say, go with that. What does her confidence remind you of? Like a gorilla? Like this big silverback gorilla that's bigger than you? That's what we're looking for. No, we need a full sentence about how you hate it. Leslie's been swaggering around like some big silverback gorilla, like beating her chest and telling everyone how great she is. It's driving me crazy. If you've ever seen Starving Artist, if you've ever even heard of it, you're probably a gay man between 25 and 40. We gather artists from all different fields. This season, a sculptor, a painter, a dancer, a poet, a singer-songwriter, a glassblower, a playwright, a piano composer, and a puppeteer, and stick them in an old defunct artists' colony in northern Pennsylvania for 23 days. We give them prompts. The first episode was Nightmare, then Shakespeare, then baseball. They work for a day and a half, creating something small and potentially beautiful, and always tragically rushed. And then they're judged, eliminated, given warnings or prizes, the usual deal. The poor playwright got a 50-second performance limit on each play. It seemed like nothing, but it was an eternity on air. He went home after the second elimination, twitching and covered in hives. The winner gets an agent and a $100,000 grant. The losers get publicity cut with humiliation. I come home upset about the playwright, and I try to tell Beth. She says, I thought the point was the exposure. I say, I don't think that's even what he wanted. He wasn't typical. His name was Lincoln, and he seemed so surprised by everything, by the number of people involved, by our lifting his shirt to retake his mic. People are going to remember him as the twitchy hive guy, I said, and I don't think he'll know how to take advantage of the publicity. Then why did he sign up? I shrug. I don't know why. Optimism, I suppose. But I don't say that. This is the way a lot of our conversations have been ending lately. One of us asking a question, the other not answering. My job is to pretend to be everyone's friend. Back in the day, you could have just taken a guy into a corner and said, you're the most talented one here. It's ridiculous how Gordy's getting these wins and he paints like a drunken toddler. Do you know what he said about you? But now they're savvier. They like to think they're in on the production aspect. So you say, you're doing well, but we need to plan for your post-show marketability. We'd like to help you develop a catchphrase. 8 days in, the producers tell us we need a romance arc. Kenneth says, it has to be Leo and Astrid because she's the hottest girl and he's the only straight guy. We have to go hetero on this. And then he says to me, no offense, Christine, it's the network, they're asses. Inez says, you want us to make them fall in love? He slurps his coffee and looks at the ceiling. Yep. The next time Astrid sits down, she's just escaped elimination. She's in that wonderful spot between ecstatic and vulnerable. She's the glass blower, and the judges are getting bored. I want to tell her she'll be safe if she can just pretend to love Leo, but I don't think she can act that well. So I say, how do you feel about Leo being the only straight guy here? Astrid has blonde hair with a pale blue streak. If you saw her on the street, you'd think she was already famous. Leo's getting along well with everyone. It's got to be hard being the only straight guy here, she says to the camera. Inez takes over. Can you see anything happening between the two of you? I don't see anything happening between me and Leo, she says, but she's blushing, so we can use it. He's cute, but I'm focusing on my art right now. I would have stopped there, knowing we got he's cute, but Inez keeps going. What do you think about his flirting with you? Is it distracting? Astrid tilts her head and her hair falls down in waves. I don't think he is. But if he were, would it bother you? No? Can you say it in a full sentence? She rolls her eyes. It wouldn't bother me if Leo flirted. Bingo. We tell Leo, so Astrid told us she thinks you're cute. She said she wouldn't mind if you flirted a little. There's a sudden wash of blood under his freckled skin. I say, what do you like about Astrid? Astrid is a talented glass blower. I think she's a real fright. Do you think she likes your music? I hope that Astrid likes my music. At least 90% of his blood is in his face now. Inez says, a lot of viewers will be wondering if you're really gay. Are you? I'm not gay. I'm attracted to women. There are a few cute girls here. Inez looks triumphant. They'll use that last sentence over a shot of him awkwardly stepping aside to let Astrid pass in the dining room. Back at our little apartment in town above the old lady's garage, Beth spends hours trying to figure out what she feels. She'll start sentences this way. It's just that sometimes I think that maybe I feel like... I imagine her chasing her emotions with a straight pin, trying to jab them in place before they get away again. They always get away again. I tell her, it's okay to make decisions with your brain. She says, I don't work that way. All day long, while she's supposed to be designing websites, she sits writing in her journal, trying to decide if she wants to stay with me. Then when I get home, she reads me her journal. I tell her she'd give a great interview. But really, she wouldn't. We don't even cast people who can't make up their minds. We take the ones who issue blanket statements and manifestos. If we ask a contestant how he feels, we want him to say, I'm on top of the world, or I feel like a sack of shit. The camera doesn't have patience for someone who equivocates. And maybe that's why I want to throttle Beth when she tells me she's been making a list of the pros and cons, she says, of our relationship. I ignore this and tell her how Inez and I are making two people fall in love. That's sick, she says. Why? I thought this was supposed to be a serious show, like focused on the actual competition. It is a good show. Not like in LA when I worked on The Princess and the Jeep. But she's been against it ever since I told her we had to pack up and spend the month in Pennsylvania. They'd let her stay with me if we wanted to live in the East Wing of the Artists' Colony, along with the crew, but she wants nothing to do with it. When I told her I'd be gone from 5 in the morning until 1 at night, she shrugged. It wasn't the point. Kenneth tells us they have footage of Leo and Astrid giggling in a hallway, choosing adjacent seats at the dinner table, taking an early morning jog. He claps me on the shoulder. We're changing the next prompt to love. This is great stuff, Christine. By the next round of interviews, we're able to say, so you and Astrid are spending a lot of time together. Is there anything you want to tell us? Astrid sits in the interview chair and asks if we can turn the camera off. Sure, we say, and give the camera guy the signal to cover the red light but keep taping. She says, I know what you guys are trying to do. I get you're supposed to create drama, but frankly, this is insulting. I look at Inez, hoping she can lie better than me. All we're doing, she says, is just speeding along what would happen in the real world if we had a lot more time. We have 2 more weeks, and that's if you stay to the finale. We're not making you date me, Astrid. We're just stirring the pot. Well, I want you to stop. Okay, I say, sure. Turn the camera back on, Blake. Remember, present tense, full sentences. So Astrid, tell us about this week's prompt. She straightens in the chair, tucks her hair behind her ear, and smiles. This week's challenge is love. I'm super excited to show the judges I can go beyond simple blown shapes and do something really spectacular. I'm skipping a lot here. All right. Inez and I sit at the back of the judgment room. Kenneth lines the 5 remaining artists up in front of the bookshelves, then tells them we won't tape for a few minutes, when really the cameras are already rolling. He tells them to stand still for the light guys, and then says, "We're having more digital issues. We're going to be here pretty late, folks." And the sleep-deprived artists, dehydrated and trying to hold still and awaiting judgment, give the most beautiful looks of disgust and despair. The cameras are getting it all. The editors will splice it in with shots of their work being critiqued or a competitor winning. Kenneth has managed to pull something like this off every episode, and they always fall for it. Once he had a camera guy give all the contestants incomprehensible instructions in a thick accent, while the other cameras captured the grimaces of confusion. At the 3rd judgment, he directed Inez to have a loud phone argument with a boyfriend in the corner of the room. That time we had enough snickering and eye-rolling to manufacture an entire implied rivalry between Leo and Gordy. It became our best plotline. Later, Inez and I will ask the artists one by one to go through the whole day, speaking in the present tense and pretending they don't know what's ahead. "I'm so nervous," they'll say, long after the judgments are over, "because I don't know if the new puppets are even going to hold together." That glorious present tense, blindest of tenses, ignoring all context, all past and future failures. Even the losers, the ones who know they've just been sent home, are somehow willing to talk about their work optimistically, as if they're about to strut out and show their best stuff. We'll say, "Okay, it's 10 minutes before the show starts, and you've just been called in. What are your hopes?" And off they go, like puppies who don't get that no matter how many times they hump their master's leg, he always swats them with the paper. "I'm so excited for the judges to see my work," cry the artists, who've just been mocked and upbraided and grilled for the 2 hours that will be edited down to 5 on-screen minutes, as if by trying hard enough they can convince us to love them again. Leo should go home, it's obvious. All his compositions are the same anemic jazz, but our matchmaking has spared him. It's Marcus, the sculptor, the great crier, that they 86. His love sculpture is incredible, really. A 3-foot-tall heart made of bars like a rounded cage. He coated each wire of the framework in lumpy clay and painted the whole thing blue. Inside the heart was a live dove that he procured at the pet store in town with his $50 in funding. The problem was that the dove, stuck in the cage for 6 hours waiting to be judged, had made a fairly convincing public bathroom of the heart floor. The judges used that as their excuse. "You didn't plan ahead. You didn't think about longevity. We wanted love, and you showed us a sad old dove. We wanted excitement, and you showed us excrement." Kenneth had written that one down for them on a note card. Even after all our work, by the end of the shoot, Kenneth has decided to drop the love arc. "We're more into Leo's falling out with Gordy, and we'll want to paint Astrid as a loner so everyone roots for Sabrina," he says. "She's gonna win." They'll never use the beautiful footage of Leo blushing, just like they'll throw away 99% of everything that happens. Those are the last 4 standing. Beautiful Leo, Gordy the mediocre painter, Sabrina the shouter, and Astrid the blonde. We have 2 days left. They'll be told that the final prompt is November, then do their last interviews and shoot the promos for the finale. They'll go home to work on a portfolio of 5 pieces, preparing to come back before the judges and make a case for their careers. They'll tell us all to love them, to care about their work, to see that they alone have embodied November. Of course, it won't actually be November. It's only June now. They'll have 10 weeks off, and we'll shoot the finale the last week of September. But it will air in late November, and that's all that counts. Not what time it is here, but on the other side of the TV screen. By the end, I never see Beth awake. I don't know if we're broken up, if we're reconciled, as if we're the same as ever. And by the way, a lot of what I cut is stuff about Beth. If you want to know more about Beth, you can do. All I have is her unconscious body beside me in the dark when I get into bed, and beside me in the earliest gray light when I roll out. It might be a nice way to fade out of things, a life-sized Beth doll to wean me off the real thing. The last day of the shoot, I'm up in the house's attic, searching among piles of abandoned furniture for a rug, long story. I look out the window, down to the grounds, and there, back near the woods, with no one else around, Leo and Astrid are kissing. Passionately, but slowly, like they've done it before. His hands in her hair, her hands in his pockets. A flood of adrenaline sends me halfway down the stairs to tell Kenneth before I stop and think. Kenneth would love me forever. I could get someone to lug a camera up here and shoot them before they walk away. I wonder for a long time afterward why I don't. It might be because I hate my job, or it might be because I still believe in love. Instead, I walk back up the stairs. I lean against the window and watch them. It's a movie, and I'm the only one in the world with a ticket. Inez carries my weight for the last interviews. Tell us why you're going to win, she says. Tell us why Leo deserves to lose. Afterwards, she asks me what's wrong. I'm not sure, sorry, let me try that again. Afterwards, she asks me what's wrong. I'm not sure what I'm going home to, I say, back in LA. She thinks I'm talking about jobs and says she's working on the new one about anorexics gaining weight back. She thinks she can hook me up. We shoot the artists packing and leaving. We shoot them looking out the back window of a moving car. And then suddenly we're done. Instead of going home to Beth, I stay for the party. The camera guys do actual keg stands on the lawn. In September, Astrid, I think, will bring back delicate glass leaves and gray bubbles. Gordy will paint empty city streets. Sabrina will dance like an empty tree. Leo will play sad, modern things on the piano that only I will know are for Astrid. And I'm certain I'll be coming back alone. Before the shoot starts, Inez and I and everyone lower on the totem pole will run around making the place look like November, desolate and cold and fading. We'll stand on ladders to pull leaves off the trees. I've done it before. I've done stranger things too. We'll spray the remaining leaves yellow and red. We'll make everyone wear a coat. We'll kill the grass with herbicide. It's sick and it's soulless, but it's one of the addictive things about my job. Here you can force the world to be something it's not. We'll take the 4 contestants one by one and put them on that ridiculous chair and ask them, why do you deserve to win? How passionate do you feel? What do you love about your work? How much do you love your work? What is this sucker punch love that ruins us so completely? And can you say it in a full sentence? Short in that story. She's in the full story a lot more. So what I'm going to do now, okay, this is my book that's out in June. It's called The Great Believers. And I have postcards over there if someone wants it, like sort of like a coaster, quick bookmark. And if you're really into it, you can like pre-order, like you can order whatever. But I'm really excited about this book. And so basically, this novel is set largely in mid to late 80s Chicago, in the Boys Town neighborhood. Which is exactly what it sounds like, where the AIDS epidemic was devastating that neighborhood really fast. It's also set partly in modern-day Paris, where there's a woman who had lost her brother back in the 80s. She's tracking down her estranged daughter, but kind of finally coming to terms with her life, her 20s. This is, I'm going to read to you the second half of the first chapter and leave you hanging in order to trick you into buying the book. What you need to know here is that our main character is a guy named Yale. He's in his early 30s, and he's recently taken on the role of being the development director of a small art gallery at Northwestern University. And he is attending not a funeral, because he and his friends were not welcome at the funeral, but a memorial service that they are holding themselves for their friend Nico, who has died. Nico's family was Catholic. There is a mass going on 20 miles away, and they are not welcome there. And Nico's partner, Terrence, was also not welcome there. He's at this party instead. So they are in kind of a fancy house that belongs to an older friend of theirs named Richard. Yale is there. Yale's boyfriend Charlie is also there with him. And Nico was just a really close friend. And he's dead before the book starts. The book starts with his memorial service. And is there anything else you need to know? I'll tell you along the way if there's other stuff that you need to know. So this is the end of the first chapter. Actually, one thing I'll say is that, like, I've read this sometimes and people have gone, wow, is it like they've wondered if it then is like turning into fantasy because of something that happens, and I'm just going to say no. This book is set in the real world. That might make a difference too as I go. All right. And what's happening right now is that Yale is standing on the staircase, and the party is kind of, it's really, the house is full of people. Everyone's drinking Cuba Libres because Nico is part Cuban. It's really, he really wanted a party. This is really a party. But now the party's kind of stopped and they're showing a slideshow of Nico's life. And Yale is not really emotionally able to handle it right now. The slides. Nico in running shorts, a number pinned to his chest. Nico and Terrence laughing against a tree, both giving the finger. Nico in profile with his orange scarf and black coat, a cigarette between his lips. Suddenly there was Yale himself, tucked in the crook of Charlie's arm. Nico on the other side. The year-end party last December for Charlie's paper. A new slide. Nico laughing at Julian and Teddy, the Halloween they had dressed as Sonny and Cher. Nico opening a present. Nico holding a bowl of chocolate ice cream. Nico up close, teeth shining. The last time Yale saw Nico, he'd been unconscious with foam, some kind of awful white foam oozing suddenly from his mouth and nostrils. Terrence had screamed into the hallway for the nurses, had run into a cleaning cart and hurt his knee, and the fucking nurses were more concerned about whether or not Terrence had shed blood than about what was happening to Nico. And here on the slide was Nico's full, beautiful face, and it was too much. Yale dashed up the rest of the stairs. He worried the bedrooms would be full of people, but the first one at least was empty. He closed the door and sat on the bed. It was dark out now, the sparse streetlights just barely illuminating the walls. Yale put his glass on the floor and lay back to stare at the ceiling and do the slow breathing trick Charlie had taught him. All fall, he'd been memorizing the list of the gallery's regular donors. Tuning out the downstairs noise, he did what he often did at home when he couldn't sleep. He named donors starting with A, then one starting with B. A fair number overlapped with the Art Institute donors he'd worked with for the past 3 years. There were hundreds of new names that he needed to recognize on the spot. Recently, he'd found the list disconcerting, had felt a dull, gray uneasiness around him, wondered why. He remembered being 7 and asking his father who else in the neighborhood was Jewish. Are the Rothmans Jewish? Are the Andersons? And his father rubbing his chin, saying, let's not do that, buddy. Historically, bad things happen when we make lists of Jews. It wasn't until years later that Yale realized this comment was a hang-up unique to his father, to his brand of self-hatred. But Yale had been young and impressionable, and maybe that's why the reciting of names chafed. Or no, maybe it was this. Lately, he'd had 2 parallel mental lists going, the donor list and the sick list. The people who might donate art or money, and the friends who might get sick. The big donors, the ones whose names you'd never forget, and the friends he'd already lost. But they weren't close friends, the lost ones, until now. They'd been acquaintances, friends of friends, like Nico's old roommate Jonathan, a couple of gallery owners, one bartender, the bookstore guy. There were, 6 people he knew of, people he'd say hi to in a bar, people whose middle names he couldn't tell you, and maybe not even their last names. He'd been to 3 memorials, but now a new list, one close friend. Yale and Charlie had gone to an informational meeting last year with a speaker from San Francisco. He'd said, I know guys who've lost no one, groups that haven't been touched, but I also know people who've lost 20 friends, entire apartment buildings devastated. For those of you younger in the audience, AIDS hit the coasts really hard before it would have hit a place like Chicago. And Yale, stupidly, desperately, had thought maybe he'd fall into that first category. It didn't help that through Charlie he knew practically everyone in Boys Town. It didn't help that his friends were all overachievers, and that they seemed to be overachieving in this terrible new way as well. How had Yale forgotten he hated rum? It always made him moody, dehydrated, hot, his stomach a mess. He found a closet-sized bathroom off this room and sat on the cool toilet, head between his knees. I'm going to skip a little, but he's there for a little while. And then there was the list of acquaintances already sick, waiting to get worse, or lying in the hospital, or flown home to die near their parents, to be written up in the local papers as having died of pneumonia. Just a few right now, but there was room on that list. Far too much room. When Yale finally moved again, it was to cup water from the sink, splash it over his face. He looked frightful in the mirror, rings under his eyes, skin gone pale olive. His heart felt funny, but then his heart always felt funny. The slideshow must be over, and if he could look down on the crowd, he'd be able to spot Charlie. They could make their escape. They could get a cab even, and he could lean on the window. When they got home, Charlie would rub his neck. He'd feel fine. He opened the door to the hall and heard a collective silence, as if they were all holding their breath, listening to someone make a speech. Only he couldn't quite hear the speech. He looked down, but there was no one in the living room. They'd moved somewhere. He came downstairs slowly, not wanting to be startled. A sudden noise would make him vomit. But down in the living room was just the whir of the record, spinning past the last song, the needle arm retired to the side. Beer bottles and Cuba Libre glasses, still half full, covered the tables and couch arms. The trays of canapes had been left on the dining table. Yale thought of a raid, some kind of police raid, but this was a private residence and they were all adults, and nothing much illegal had happened. Probably someone had some pot, come on. How long had he been upstairs? Maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30. He wondered if he could have fallen asleep on the bed, if it was 2 a.m. now. But no, not unless his watch had stopped. It was only 5:45. He was being ridiculous, and they were out in the backyard. Places like this had backyards. He walked through the empty kitchen, through a book-lined den. There was a door, but it was deadbolted. He cupped his hand to the glass, a striped canopy, a heap of dead leaves, the moon, no people. Yale turned and started shouting. Hello? Richard? Guys, hello? He went to the front door, also bizarrely deadbolted, and fumbled till it opened. There was no one on the dark street. The foggy, ridiculous idea came to him that the world had ended, that some apocalypse had swept through and forgotten only him. He laughed at himself, but at the same time, he saw no bobbing heads in neighbors' windows. There were lights in the houses opposite, but then the lights were on here too. At the end of the block, the traffic signal turned from green to yellow to red. He heard the vague rush of cars far away, but that could have been the wind, couldn't it? Or even the lake. He hoped for a siren, a horn, a dog, an airplane across the night sky. Nothing. He went back inside and closed the door. He yelled again, "You guys!" And he felt now that a trick was being played, that they might jump out and laugh. But this was a memorial, wasn't it? This wasn't the 10th grade. People weren't always looking for ways to hurt him. He found his own reflection in Richard's TV. He was still here, still visible. On the back of a chair was a blue windbreaker he recognized as Asher glasses. The pockets were empty. He should leave, but where would he even go? Cigarette butts filled the ashtrays. None were half smoked, none smashed out in haste. He walked through every room on the ground floor, opened every door, pantry, coat closet, vacuum closet, until he was greeted with a wall of cold air and descending cement steps. He found the light switch and made his way down. Laundry machines, boxes, 2 rusty bikes. He climbed back up and then all the way to the 3rd floor, a study, a little weight room, some storage, and then down to the 2nd again and opened everything. A master bedroom, all white and green. A Diane Arbus print on the wall, the one of the boy with the hand grenade. A telephone sat next to Richard's bed, and Yale grabbed it with relief. He listened to the tone, reassuring, and slowly dialed his phone number. No answer. He needed to hear a voice, any human voice, and so he got the dial tone back and called information. "Name and city, please," the woman said. "Hello?" He wanted to make sure she wasn't a recording. "This is information. Do you know the name of the person you wish to call?" "Yes, it's Marcus, Nico Marcus, on North Clark in Chicago." He spelled the names. "I have an N Marcus on North Clark. Would you like me to connect you?" No, thank you." "Stay on the line for the number." Yale hung up. He circled the house one more time and went finally to the front door. He called to no one. "I'm leaving, I'm going," and stepped out into the dark. That was so good. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks everyone for coming. Some of you have books from your classes that I'm sure Rebecca and Makkai would be happy to sign. Otherwise, there's some for sale back there.